Guys, welcome back to the channel, and it's time to take a look at these carbon forks that I got from the guys at BRG Racing Group. Now, they sent these to me when I initially bought some parts to upgrade my Chase class bike that I've got, and I wanted to give you guys a little bit of a closer look at these because when we initially opened the box, we just got a quick glance at them, but now I've got some additional components that I wanted to put with these, along with what I would need to get them installed with my bike and the setup that I've got. So let's take a little bit of a closer look at them. Now, these are the Ikon Carbon Forks that are available through the guys there at BRG Racing Group, and they feature the 1/8" steer tube, which my bike has the 1/8" head tube, so it's almost a direct fit to the bike with a little bit of fumbling with it and a little bit of time you can get them installed. And there's a little bit of adjustment that needs to be done with the dropouts because these are designed for a 20mm axle. Thankfully, the guys there at BRG Group has this 10mm to 20mm adapter which thread right into the dropouts and makes it really easy so you can stick with the factory setup that you may have. That way you're not having to change out your front axle at the same time when you install these, and it's almost like a simple sort of plug and play, so to speak, with just these here. Now, I'm also going to update the stem on the bike. I don't need to, but I want to with this just because I want to have a little bit less weight on the front end. And this here from Elevn Technologies is their aluminum stem. Now, it's also designed for the 1/8" steer tube that's on the bike, and it also works with my handlebars, specifically with the 22.2 diameter bar that I use. Now, that pretty much works with the factory diameter bar and the factory steer tube. So if you're not updating your forks at the time, you can actually purchase these in different lengths and tune the bike a little bit to your liking, just with where you want to have the bars. Now, with these, I went with the 50mm setup, which is basically the stock length that's on the bike already, but it's less weight. In fact, I've got another one right here. This is the factory unit that's right off of my cruiser bike, and it's basically the same thing that I did when I updated the forks on the cruiser as what I'm doing with this. Let's open this up and take a little bit of a closer look at what we got. These are just a really cool, nice carbon fork, and they do a really good job of packaging these and presenting them, making them a real nice piece. A lot of people have been asking, where's the video, when you guys gonna have, or when are you gonna get this installed? So hopefully that I can satisfy some people with this. Now, these come in a few different colors. This happens to have the blue graphics on it, which kind of goes along with the theme of the bike, where I'm doing a little bit of the blue anodized accents on it just to kind of give it its own uniqueness. And it's just a really good, nice, lightweight fork. Now, as I mentioned earlier, these have the 20mm axle adapters to them, and that's what these things right here will go to, and it allows you to use that stock setup. They just thread right into the bottom of your dropouts, makes it real easy to install. Now, with this 1/8" head tube, this will also work on any other BMX bike that's got an 1/8" head tube. Like I said, I did this upgrade on my cruiser bike, and it was a really nice upgrade and took some weight off the front. It's going to be interesting to see what it does on my class bike because it's already a lightweight bike. I've been on the bike for a few months now. I've actually had a couple of state races with it and did okay there. And I've had some local race nights. And I think putting these forks on are going to help out with just taking some weight off the front end, which will give me a little bit more control over the bike when it's in the air and when I'm going over obstacles. I'm not really a guy that jumps. I try to keep the bike low and as fast as humanly possible at my old age as I try and ride and compete with some of these guys. So I'm hoping that this will help a little bit. Now, a unique feature that's on the steer tube portion of this is that this right here is machined at a little bit of a bevel. So what's nice about that is that you can use your factory headset. You don't really have to upgrade the headset, but you use what's called an integrated headset, where the bottom doesn't really need an additional kind of bearing to it or bearing race. It just goes right up inside the head tube and the bottom of the head tube on the bike. You want to make sure you use a little bit of lube on here or a little bit of grease. I like to cross over and use the grease from Sticky Kicks RC. I use a lot of their products with my RC cars, and they've got a good red grease that's just an all-around really good kind of lubricant that I like to use when I'm doing this kind of work. And it comes in this nice syringe, so it makes it easy to apply. It doesn't get all over the place. So Ray, if you're watching, it's always good to see you and talk to you. And I'm always enjoying having to do the crossover with the RC car stuff and the BMX racing stuff. Ray over there at Sticky Kicks RC is a big mountain bike fan as well. So he always likes watching these videos when I do these. So quick shout out to you, buddy. So along with the way this 1/8" steer tube is here, you also have this threaded bit. Now, usually on the factory setup, you've got an Allen bolt that goes down inside your steer tube, and it can be a little bit difficult to kind of get on and off, and sometimes can strip out. Now, what's nice about this is being the size that it is, you have a lot more support here in the steer tube portion of the forks, and it's just a really good, nice, beefy part, and it's nice and sort of lightweight aluminum, so it's not massively heavy, it's not steel at all, so it adds to just the uniqueness of these forks when you install them, and just the niceness of them all around. So hopefully you guys can get a good look at them here. I really kind of dig the blue that they do on these, and they have them in a few different colors. They have a red, they have a gray, they have a teal color. I believe there's yellow. I think there's a sand color that goes with some of the other themes of the Chase bikes. Now what's nice about these is that these work on the 1/8" head tube. They also have them set up for an 1" head tube, I believe, and they also do them with the setups where you have an 1/8" at the top and 1.5" at the bottom. So you've got some, one of the more nice or higher end frames from Chase or maybe another manufacturer. You can use these forks on those bikes as well. So they've got a few different options out there for sizing. So when you take a look at them there online, you'll be able to see what you need to be able to fit your bike. This is just a really cool looking unit. I'm really looking forward to getting these on. Pete, if you're watching, big shout out to you. Thank you for sending these to me. Again, I really appreciate it. So thank you for doing that for me. Now, as mentioned earlier in the video that I was going to change out the stem. I'm going to stick with essentially the same stem that I use on the cruiser bike, because I also updated that when I did this. Now, you don't necessarily need to do that yourself when you're doing this. You can use the factory stem. But this one is a machined aluminum unit, and it just has that nice blue anodizing on it that kind of goes with some of the other parts on the bike. And these come in a few different sizes, like I mentioned earlier, so you can utilize this to be able to tune the bike a little bit. I kept it at the same 50mm length because I didn't want to change up too much on the front, but it does aid in the lighter weight aspect of what's going on the front end. In fact, I've got my scale here so we can take a quick look at the difference between this one and the factory one. And then again, this is the one that's off my cruiser, but it's pretty much the same design as what's on the class bike. And you can see there's just a little bit of a difference between the two, the way that they're designed. There's less material here, but it's nice and strong and lightweight, whereas this is almost like a stamped chromoly steel. So you're definitely gonna take a little bit of weight off. So we can take a quick look and just compare that aspect of it on the scale and even maybe weigh the forks as well to get a good idea of what they weigh. So I'm going to zero this out, which it's already there, and I'm at ounces. So the factory stem here, as I weigh it, weighs in at 8.8 ounces. Now that's not necessarily too heavy, but this all adds up in the end to how things are overall on the bike. So when I take this off, make sure that zeroes out. Let's check out the aluminum one. And the aluminum one comes in at 8.25 ounces. So it's not necessarily something of a weight savings that you're going to feel on the bike yourself, but in the steering and the feel of the bike, you may notice because you have less weight there that you're moving back and forth. It's not a massive difference, but it's something that you may feel. So let's take that off. Let's actually see how much the forks themselves weigh. I'll move this over here so we can get a good look at this. Make sure that zeroes out. So let's put this on here. So the forks come in at 19.5 ounces. Now it's 16 ounces in a pound, I believe. So that's just a little over about 1.5 pounds. I might be wrong there at 1.5 pounds, but 19.5 ounces is where it's at. So I don't know what they are for the factory ones, and I'll actually check that later in the video, and I'll show you guys what the factory ones weigh, so we can do a little bit of a comparison between how much weight I'm taking off the front and how much I'm putting back onto it. So I'm going to go and put these forks on. I'm not necessarily going to show you guys how that's done because it does take a little bit of time. I don't want to bore you guys with me trying to fumble around with my tools and trying to do this. Now, if you're trying to attempt this kind of installation on your own, all you really need is a good set of Allen wrenches, which you can pick up at a local hardware store. You got a local Lowe's, Home Depot, something like that. It's always good to have them in your pit box. Or if you have a local bike shop that's willing to install these for you, it's always good to check with your local bike shops and try to support them as much as you can, because of course they're typically small businesses and they live and breathe and die by people like us and consumers that come in and support them when they can. Thankfully, the guys there at BRG Store are local here to me in Southern California. They're technically a small business, so I'd like to support them like as much as I can, and I can do some of this work on my own because of my mechanical background and some of the things that I've done in the past. So I'm going to go tackle that job. It's going to probably take me about 30 to 45 minutes, and then we're going to come back to this video. I'm going to show you guys that these forks are installed, and hopefully I'm also going to have the wheels on there for you as well, because I do have a new set of tires that I'm going to be switching to. But I'm going to save that for a different part of the video later on. So I'm going to get this going, and we'll be right back with these installed for you. All right, guys, so here we are. Thanks for sticking with me in this video. Got everything all installed, as you can see, with the stem that I've got on here. And unfortunately, I had to change out the headset to the aftermarket headset that's on here from Elevn Technologies. The reason being is because down here on the fork, if you recall earlier in the video, it's got that machined end to it where the steer tube comes down and meets with the forks itself. And unfortunately, the factory bearing, which I'll show you here in just a moment, didn't allow the forks to come up inside the head tube enough to where when I would tighten this down up here with your top cap, it threads down into the steer tube to where once everything was tight, this wouldn't move. It was literally completely solid. So because of that, I had to change out the headset so that now down here I have a sealed bearing instead of what was from the factory. So you do have to make that change when you install these forks on the bike. And I'll show you right here because I have the factory fork sitting right over here on a stool. Essentially, this bearing setup right here and the way that's set up, I'll zoom in a little bit, you can see the bearing casing and the race that's here, because of the way this is designed, because you don't have a beveled edge coming into here. This is just one straight piece going down into the factory forks. And of course, it's all welded together. So because of that, you have to change out the headset, unfortunately. Thankfully, the headset was relatively affordable, and I was able to get it pretty quick and get this done. While I was at it, I went ahead and got some extra headset spacers, which are right here, or some stem spacers, depending on what you want to call them, just to fine-tune the height of where this is going to sit. Now, these are really good to just have in your pit box in general, especially if you have a younger rider. Of course, as kids get bigger, you can adjust the height of this a little bit and fine-tune things a little bit. Or if you're just a rider that's getting into this and you want to adjust your stem height a little bit, which of course adjusts your overall bar height, that gives you the ability to fine-tune this, give you a little bit more of a better feel for the bike. So we're going to come on down here and take a look at the forks. And this just really looks good with this blue on here and this carbon mixed together. Just a really cool looking piece altogether. I really like the way these look when they were on my cruiser, which you can kind of see in the background there where I had it kind of tucked away at the moment. And of course I was able to use the adapters here on the factory bolts, which this is just a 3/8 bolt, because the dropouts here have a 20mm hole in them. The reason being is because a lot of people who do aftermarket forks in some cases will have an aftermarket hub. Well, this is just the factory hub and it uses a 3/8 or 10mm bolt. Usually aftermarket hubs will have a 20mm axle, which is why these are a little bit bigger, and all you have to do is use these adapters. I have some other friends that have used some other forks from other companies, and these adapters are really good to have because then you can use your factory setup in a lot of cases and not have to worry about changing out the axle. So that's what I was able to do with this. All in all, this was a pretty easy installation. Now, I do have some experience because I initially did this on my cruiser. That took a little bit more time, and I should have known the headset issue when I first got everything, but I was trying to do this without changing out the headset, sticking with the factory setup, and unfortunately I wasn't able to go that route. So as you can see, everything just went kind of together here real nice. The blue just ties in real nice with a little bit of silver instead of some black. Thought that would look cool. No, why not, you know? Going down to the tire here, now I don't think I mentioned this earlier in the video, but maybe I did. I did change out the tires to the new Tioga FastR or FastR React tire. Now these are a 20 by 1.75 tire on the front and the rear, and they're 120 thread per inch count, which means you have 120 threads per inch. Now on the factory setup with the Tioga power blocks, I only had 60 threads per inch. Now the science behind this is ideally is you have a little bit more of a firmer tire and you can bump these up a little bit more higher with air. The factory setup, I was running 60 PSI, now I'm running 80 PSI inside the inner tubes, and I'm able to get this tire a lot firmer. Ideally, what that means is a little bit less rolling resistance, and of course you can get a little bit more speed out of it because you have less rolling resistance overall. Now, something else I changed was to the new inner tubes here. If you see the orange valve stem that's sticking up, I'm now using the new Tubolito inner tubes, which are considerably lighter than the factory rubber inner tube that was in here. They actually say you have about a 50 to 60% weight savings over just the standard rubberized inner tube, so to speak. And I can also run a little bit more air in them. So all in all, with the lighter weight tube and this tire on here, that alone was almost a 1 pound savings. And then of course with the factory forks off of here, the factory fork was 2.3 pounds. I weighed it after I first showed you what the aftermarket forks were weighing it at. So overall, I've taken almost I think 2.5 pounds, 2.3 to 2.5 pounds off the bike in total, because I also have this rear tire and this inner tube setup in the back, which helps save some weight there. Now, because of that, I went with the back to the factory chainring, and we'll go back here to the rear of the bike so that you guys can see that. As you remember in a video that I previously did, I actually had a 46 tooth chainring that I put on. Now I'm back to the factory 44 chainring. The reason being is because the 1.75 tire in the rear here, which is wider than the factory 1.6 tire, you have to go down a little bit in your chainring if you've made this adjustment. If you've kept this alone and you're going to a 1.75 tire in the rear, you don't have to make that change. But because you have a little bit more of a wider tire, I have a little bit more of a wider tire now in the back, using the factory chainring, I'm able to go back to that magic kind of 55-ish number from a rollout standpoint. So all in all, pretty simple to do. Took a little bit of time, maybe 25, 30 minutes to get things squared away and get it done. Give you guys a little bit of an up-close look here at the pedals that I put on here in the last video. And just kind of back to the back of the bike here. Now that I've got things sort of squared away, and I've actually tested this slightly. I did go out to the track the other night to give it some test laps just to see what it would do. But I want to give you guys some chance to kind of see this bike in action with the new setup on it. So I'm going to clean this bike up. Let's get the thing out to San Diego BMX, try and get some laps in for you guys to see, and I'll give you guys some final thoughts. So thanks for sticking with me, and let's get over to the track, get some laps in. All right, guys, so here we are back out at San Diego BMX Racing. I'm lucky enough to, of course, have this place in my backyard. I was able to get some good laps in, which I'm going to show you guys here in just a moment, which you'll see in the video that I've got as we get further into this. Now, overall, the bike has felt really good underneath me. Of course, the lighter weight aspect of the bike and the lighter weight components definitely helps with the acceleration, especially coming out of the gate and coming off the corners, as I'm able to pedal a little bit quicker and get a few more spins in, and of course, it helps me accelerate. So this has definitely been a positive aspect of the lighter weight parts, especially with the lighter weight inner tubes that are on here, because I'm able to get the bike moving quicker, and of course the lighter weight front forks helps me have more control over the bike, and I can bring the front of the bike up a little bit more over obstacles and off of jumps. So that gives me definitely a little bit more control compared to the factory setup that the bike came with. Now, whether or not this is the right thing for you to do, it's really hard to say, because I've been riding for a little bit, and of course I've gotten a little bit more used to these changes a little bit more quicker. And you will too as you do these changes yourself, but of course I've always said it's good to go out and practice on the bike and get laps in at your local track, and then make changes later on as you go, because that'll help you with your riding, with just riding and practicing and getting more used to the bike. So overall, I'm pretty happy with the results, and I hope you guys like the video that you've seen so far. Of course, if you like what you're seeing from me, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. If you guys have questions, put them in the comments below, and I'll try and get back to everybody as quick as I can. I'm going to have, of course, links in the description of the video here at the bottom of the video, so that you guys can see where I get the parts from, and of course you can check the items out yourself and all the components that I have on the bike. So for now, this is Brad with Lucky 7 Racing, and I hope to see you guys out at the racetrack.